at the party conference in Birmingham. We'll get some more of that later on. That's the prize No Town Wants to Win. Nominations have opened for the annual Carbuncle Awards. So who do you think deserves the Pluk on the Plinth?
I think it has to be Lumfinnan. Certainly not the prettiest place in the world, and with a name like that, come on, it has to be up there, surely.
Gilly is the ugliest place in Scotland, mainly because there's nothing there. A lot of buildings are shut down. There's garbage all over the streets. There's dog mess, and it's just not a pretty place to look at.
I think the ugliest town in Scotland has to be Bo'ness. Really, it's a town that time forgot. I mean, it's dilapidated. It's pretty dirty, full of 60s houses. And it just is an absolute eyesore on the landscape there. I couldn't wait to get out of the place quick enough.
Well, the gong is handed out to Scotland's most dismal town. Previous winners, Cumbernauld, Glenrothes and Linwood, they're all in the running again, alongside Ayr, Broxburn, Leslie and New Milns. We're joined by John Glenday, who organises the competition, and by Kevin Sayre, who's the Area Services Manager with Glenrothes Council. John, is it a serious award?
Well, it's tongue-in-cheek, but it does have a serious edge to it. Obviously, these are important issues which need addressing. We've just heard from your contributors there about, issues ranging from the small, the seemingly trivial, from peeling paint to boarded up shops, to sort of wider issues of planning reform and how we tackle our smaller towns in the current economic climate, where our high streets are in a bad shape, where businesses are closing down, where we're needing to find new investment and new ways of bringing up the smaller communities. And I think that's where the Carbuncles can come in, particularly with Urban Realms' expertise in the built environment, through architecture, through planners, through looking at what makes our smaller spaces tick, and actually bringing in our team of experts to assess what's going wrong in some of these places, and more importantly identifying what can be done to turn them around and put these places back on the right track.
Kevin Sayre from Glenrothes, do you buy that, and how does it feel to be nominated again?
I'm not sure I buy all of that, although I think it shines a light on progress in town centres isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think disappointed is how we feel in Glenrothes. People will know locally that we won the Beautiful Scotland Award this year as overall winner, so we must be doing something right. And in terms of the town centre, which I think is the focus for our nomination, the council doesn't actually own that. I mean, it's in private ownership, but the council has been working hard with the company that owns it to develop an action plan, and it's likely to come to planning committee over the next couple of months.
But how do you explain
hidden away and not mentioned in the word?
How do you explain having both those things? That nomination for Carbuncle and Beautiful Scotland. I mean, you can't be both things, really.
Well, I think yes we can. I think clearly we are. What we have is a setting which is beautiful woodland, which we complement with great planting and great community work to develop that. But at the same time, we've got a 1950s, 1960s town centre with everything concrete in it. It's understandable that was of its time. We are working to move on and replace that, and to try and turn what's an inside-out town centre. The high street's enclosed effectively in Glenrothes. It's not open like it is in older towns. So we're working on that history, if you like, and that ain't easy.
We're joined now by Neil Baxter from the Royal Incorporation of Architects in Scotland. And Neil, the sponsors, this Urban Realm magazine, they say the towns have been chosen because they harbour a variety of ills. Is this fair?
I think the whole thing is just a crass PR stunt. I've always thought that. I think you don't achieve anything by demonising communities and slagging people off, basically. Awards should be about celebrating achievement and positive things and encouraging people to do better. They're not about parachuting in from your grand offices in the centre of, Glasgow or Edinburgh, wherever it is, and slagging somebody off and then leaving. What does that achieve?
John Glenday, you started a crass publicity stunt.
Well, there's obviously we have our critics, but I think what I would say is that we have to raise the awareness of these issues. We can't sweep under the carpet failures, things which are going wrong. We have awards 10 a penny, sort of sing the praises of things that go right.
That's twaddle, John. That's complete nonsense. Complete nonsense. You don't demonise people. You cannot. You're not doing anything constructive. You're coming in, slagging somebody off and leaving and going back into your ivory tower. That's not beneficial. If you actually want to make a real difference, you go in there and you talk to communities and you work with people constructively and positively, and you make a real positive difference. You don't achieve anything just by demonising people, demonising communities and kicking folk when they're already down.
I refute that again, Neil. I don't think you understand the Carbuncle's process, which does actually entail site visits to the towns. With our team, we have architects, we have planners on board. We take time out. We only need to look at Denny, which actively wanted
20 minutes, half an hour, John, come on. Are you in there for months, working with the communities, working with people, doing something constructive?
Yes.
No, you're not. You're flying in, you're saying this is terrible, and you're going away back, and you're writing about it. It's a cheap publicity stunt, always has been, and it's not the way to achieve anything positive.
If you've been following Urban Realm and magazine, we've been covering
John, I don't follow Urban Realm magazine. Urban Realm follows everybody else. So as far as Urban Realm's concerned, it's useful for the litter bin and nothing else.
Well, strong words, Neil, but I think many would suggest that the RIAS is failing your own organisation to raise awareness of these issues and sort of debate them in public.
No, John,
so
we work
other organisations to
constantly
do your job.
and very hard. The architectural profession is working with communities the length and breadth of Scotland, working with government, working with local authorities. We're actually doing something constant and constructive, and our awards.
Okay, let me break you two up, John Glenday, Neil Baxter, and come back to Kevin from Glenrothes. I'm guessing, Kevin, that you know, I would feel sorry for a town that if anybody is vilifying what you've done, it's the sins of the past. You've got buildings that were built in the 60s that you've somehow got to make beautiful.
That would be our point, yeah, and planning and development takes longer than all of us would like. I think I will say that winning the Carbuncle Award before certainly prompted us to do more.
So it was a good thing?
Well, in a negative way. I think as that debate showed, I think it basically showed us to say we'll show them. I don't remember getting any help from Urban Realm to do that, but I might be wrong.
Okay, John, what's the future of this award then for you?
Well, we see it sort of gathering strength. I mean, we've been inundated with nominations, I don't know, 16 today, so it really seems to have struck a chord with the wider public. People who are unhappy with the way things are going in the current climate and are anxious to do something about it, and they see the carbuncles as a tool, something which they can harness to their own end.
Do you know, Stuart from West Kilbride has just texted in 80295. He says, John, your awards is an exercise in encouraging Scottish people to talk down their town environment and country.
Well, it's about raising the most proud Scotsman would admit that there are issues that this country needs to address, and that's what the Carbuncle is about. It's about bringing these to the fore, not sweeping them under the carpet, not trying to move on to brighter things. It's about addressing them and, more importantly, putting them right.
John, you can't suggest that slagging people off is actually a constructive process. You're attempting to justify the entirely unjustifiable. It's a cheap PR stunt. It sells a few more of your rag, good and well.
But Neil, you would have to accept that not every Scottish town is beautiful.
Of course, but these are profound socio-economic problems. You don't actually achieve anything. If communities are wealthy, then they tend to be very pleasant environmentally. They tend to be. If communities have fundamental social, economic ills, then you go in and you address these and you involve yourself in a careful process that's about reconstruction, reinforcing the community, creating new employment, creating new jobs, allowing people to have the wherewithal to improve their places. It's not about folk flying in, declaring that something is, unsightly, unpleasant, and then heading back off to, as I say, their proverbial ivory towers, but in this case, back to their pleasant offices in Glasgow.
We'll leave it.
That's not a positive process.
On that note,
Let's
thank
celebrate
you.
achievement rather than slag folk off.
Very much indeed. Thank you. That's Neil Baxter from the Royal Corporation of Architects in Scotland, and we heard from John Glenday, who organises the competition And Kevin Sayer from Glenrothes. 80295 is the text number. If you believe what you've just heard, or you don't, do get in touch. Now, after this programme, it's Penny Lattin. Hello, Penny.
Hi, I'm itching to talk about ugly towns now. I'm itching to jump in there.
Well, go on then.
Well, the question I wanted to have is, does an ugly place necessarily mean it doesn't have a sense of community?
That's a very good question.
I mean,
no, the answer is no, it doesn't.
Because I've lived in beautiful places where there was very little sense of community. And I've lived in uglier places that are great.
That's a good point. And also, they do inherit the buildings that were built for them in the past. And money's not limitless. But anyway, what's happening in your programme?
Yes. Well, this week, we've got a bit of a dilemma, really, on the Kitchen Cafe. If you're